For staying with us. Now, climate change poses significant challenges to many developing countries, including Kenya. In an effort to mitigate its harmful effects, the Kenyan government has devised various interventions, one of which is a plan to plant 15 billion trees over the next 10 years. Our reporter Flora Limuki had an exclusive interview with the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Environment and Climate Change to gain more insights on the topic. Have a look.
In the last few years, the conversation on climate change has been a hot topic, not only in Kenya, but also across the globe. Tonight, we speak with the Principal Secretary for Environment and Climate Change to just get to know what is the ministry doing to mitigate the effects of climate change. Mheshimiwa, welcome to TV 47. Perhaps we can start with what is this climate change?
Basically, climate change in a layman's language is there must be some change in the climate that we live in. So it is a change of weather patterns due to various effects, the depletion of ozone layer because of our emissions of green gases. That's why we keep on experiencing things that we didn't experience before. Just recently we had high, long, prolonged drought which we've never seen before. Then within no time, then there is rains, but also the rains that come in light torrents, that means high flooding. So it is either of the effects of conditions that we look at. And if you look at the temperature that we're experiencing also, those are some of the things that we might not have been experienced. But basically it is out of our own issues as human beings that we've been able to interfere with the environment. And therefore, the climate or the environment is punishing us through the climate change process. So drought is one of the effects as a result of climate change, and one of the ways that it affects the food security is the issues of lack of rainfall. You are aware that Kenya, we depend on rain-fed agriculture, and therefore when there is lack of rain, then it becomes very difficult for us to be able to produce or to plant and plan for the issues of the food. And when the rains are available, it can also be less, meaning therefore it can be able to sustain the production period for the crops to grow. And therefore, even if you look at in the last few months, beginning I think September, October, up to just as late as May or April, we had long periods of high temperatures, meaning there is a lot of transpiration, made loss of moisture to the environment, and therefore crops have not been performing well. We've therefore have also the loss of livestock and livelihoods for the various communities that have been living, especially in the ASAL areas. And more than 23 counties have severely been affected by these drought effects, which of course is as a result of climate change. So climate change has become an existential threat to humanity.
There is the Climate Change Bill 2023, Amendment Bill 2023. What does it entail? Could you bring us up to speed on what is entailed in that specific amendment bill?
We realize in the process of us operationalizing the Climate Change Act 2016, we realized there are three things that we needed to check on it or amend. One has been the issue of, there's a big conversation. Climate Change Act, again, is supposed to be looking at the issues of climate finance. So one of the ways of us to raise climate finance is through carbon markets. And then we noticed that we didn't have any express law, any express provision in the Act that gives us an opportunity for us to raise finances for the country or for climate mitigation, adaptation, or livelihood resilience programs in Climate Change Act. So we then decided that we need to amend Climate Change Act to be able to provide a provision for establishment of climate carbon markets framework, legal and policy framework, for us to be able to raise funds for climate action or any other of the sort. And therefore, that's one of the key things we are looking at in terms of amendment. Secondly, also, there is this issue of the council, where the president is the chairman of the council. We've had quite if you look on the Act, that is the highest decision-making organ. It's been very difficult to operationalize it because of the modalities on how the nominations to the council are being done. So we have tried to re-engineer it to give the president the powers to be able to nominate from the various categories that we've been able to put it in the Act. So those would be some of the two big amendments that we are looking at, apart from the others which are very minor. We've been having issues in terms of how revenue sharing between communities, project developers, and whoever is developing a particular project in an environment are shared between whoever is developing and the communities. So we want to enhance transparency, we want to enhance productivity in how this making the environment hygienic so that we know what's happening. In fact, we are just operationalizing Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, 6.2, 6.4, on voluntary carbon markets space and on the compliance. So for us, we are looking at those thematic areas to make sure that we are compliant with the law.
What are some of the strategies that you're putting in place to ensure that you plant 15 billion trees in the next 10 years?
So far, on the statistics and the data that we have as a ministry, I think 4 million trees, seedlings have been planted, grown, not even planted, grown, because we are looking at not planting this time around, we are making sure we are doing tree growing. We have solid strategy to make sure that we do the 5 billion in the first years, 10 billion in the second second 5 years, meaning 15 billion within 10 years. The strategy is multi-sectoral, not government alone. We are supposed to work with the private sector. We are supposed to work with farmers. We are supposed to work with small-scale holders. It's about all of us Kenyans working. The seedlings that are available, we keep on building through our institutions, Carefree, KFS. But of course, we will also work with the private sector to be able to get to the 15 billion. As you see, the 15 billion is going to move the tree cover from 12.3% to 30% by 2030. 2032 as exposed, and one of the key things is to make sure that we really restore up to 10.6 million hectares of land that will be able to take us to 30%. Forests will always grow. There are these mature trees that needs to be, instead of leaving them to rot, why not harvest them, make money, buy tree seedlings, go plant new ones, and regenerate and expand the environment. So where the ban on logging is, the issue has been the misuse. So I think we are deliberate in the plan that even as we look at the ban on logging, it's going to be done in a very systematic manner, that we are not degrading the forests, but also we are making sure that whatever is being harvested is replenished.
What are the goals of the ministry as you hold this summit that will be held in Nairobi come September?
The reason why the summit is being held in Kenya, which I have indicated, is that the president is the chair and he did agree that he wants to also plan is to rally the African continent in developing a position, even as we transition to COP28. What is the message, what we could call it a Nairobi Declaration, as we transition to COP28, which is happening in December. And we're still working on the various thematic areas that we are looking, but of course the green growth agenda or industrialization will be big on the agenda, climate finance, and of course carbon markets as part of climate finance will be part of the themes that we'll be looking at it.
And how are you aligning with the Sustainable Development Goal 13 to ensure that you fight the effect of climate change and also the impact it has on the country?
I think one of the key things that we've done is, and thanks for that question, we are working on our National Climate Change Action Plan Phase 3 or 3, 2023-2027, which of course espouses the strategies that the government is putting in place in terms of meeting its NDCs. Our plan was to make sure that we have reduced our NDC emissions by 32% by 2032. But that is coming very fast because that anticipated that the issue of coal establishment of fossil fuels. So one of the key things we are doing is to be able to protect ourselves, mitigate against effects of climate change. One is, as I mentioned, the tree growing is one of the key aspects that we are looking at in terms of that. Carbon, forests act as carbon sinks. Rangelands is going to be big. When you look about grasslands, the issues of sequestration of carbon becomes very, very effective in that aspect. We are looking at e-mobility. In the next few months or so, you'll be looking at a rolling strategy under the Ministry of Energy, where we want to decommission the fossil fuels motorbikes, for example, and have the electric motorbikes assembly, so that it can be able to, we reduce the issues of pollution. So there are quite a number of things that as a ministry are working with the other sectors like energy, transport, put in place to be able to mitigate. We're also sensitizing the climate change program. The FLOCA is the part of it is to be able to empower communities against understanding on how to mitigate, how to building livelihood resilience within the community to be able to even adapt and mitigate on their own. So one of the key things that we do as a ministry is to empower them. Even this tree growing program is just encouraging them that we need to be able to be sensible and sensitive in how we handle our environment. That if we don't handle it properly, the environment is going to punish us. We are working also, if you notice that in the curriculum of the schools, 4K clubs are coming into being, encouraging our children or educating our children on the early stages when they are still young on the effects of climate change and what is the importance of planting trees and conservation of environment. So I think that is basically what we are going back to the basics where we were some times back before we decided to destroy nature, and the nature is not kind on us in any way. So those are some of the things that we are looking at as a ministry.
Well, quite an enlightening conversation that we've had there, and of course, even as big strides have been made to ensure that we mitigate the effect of climate change, there is a collective responsibility that is needed from all of us in order to fully fight climate change in the country. Thank you so much, PS, for creating time to speak to us. We are thankful. My name is Flora Limuki. Enjoy the rest of your evening.